Thank you for joining me for this episode. In Her Own Way is a space to create and spark conversations with women around the world who are living boldly. This podcast will offer new perspectives and status quo pushing thoughts from women who speak with heart, soul, and courage. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't love what you're doing. It means that you probably do enjoy what you're doing, or you enjoy being part of that group, or you love the person in your life, but you just need to take a rest. Well, hello everyone. I haven't talked to you guys for a couple podcasts or so. A couple months it is actually. I really am so excited to be bringing you episode 47 because if you don't know me, 47 actually is my favorite number. But beyond that, this is one of my favorite topics because I hear it all the time. I coach on it all the time. And I think once you understand it, it can be actually super powerful for you in your life, and also maybe uncovering some truths for yourself, or also just some insight that you can use for the rest of your life when it comes to feelings of either burning out or overwhelm. So let's just kind of break this down, shall we? When I hear burnout, overwhelm, I always think, but you have a choice. And sometimes life throws curveballs at you that, like health or injury or death or grieving, things like that, that could lead to a state of burnout or overwhelm. Absolutely. But I think in like the entrepreneurial / social media / career / motherhood / just being a woman space, we actually have more choice than we believe. And I also feel as though these kind of terms, especially burnout, is a glorification of hustle. It's a term that is often used to justify like taking time off of social media or going on a retreat in Bali, things like that. It's like, I'm so burnt out, I have to go rejuvenate. And it's like, yes, that's what you should be doing, but let's just unpack it a little bit to give us some state. I was recently coaching with someone, and we were talking a lot about themselves and their families and their dreams. And there was this kind of aha moment at the end of our coaching series where so much of the overwhelm that my client had really felt in trying to balance motherhood and the demands of the business that they were running and the demands of motherhood and her desire for creativity, in that she started to unpack the overwhelm feeling by putting some really hard boundaries in place. So let's start off with this. So just breaking burnout and overwhelm down really, really simply is burnout is trying to create satisfying results, and overwhelm is really that you're not producing much of anything that you feel is substantial. You kind of just feel like you're floating around. You're maybe a ping pong in a wind tunnel, ping pong ball in a wind tunnel. And burnout is this need to like constantly being creative, constantly producing, constantly ticking boxes. That's what kind of burnout is. So let's break it down even more. So burnout is this idea of trying to create satisfying results. Now I put satisfying in quotations because I think satisfying is something that you personally have either adopted, as in that's a satisfying end result. Like to me, that's satisfying, but it's actually burning you out. So you just keep doing it because you're so hell-bent on creating a result. Or it's an expectation that no longer feels sustainable for you, that either your parents or your grandparents or a teacher or a boss or a company or even a culture or religion is placing upon you, that you no longer are able to maintain long term. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't love what you're doing. It means that you probably do enjoy what you're doing, or you enjoy being part of that group, or you love the person in your life, but you just need to take a rest. So burnout could look like stressful thinking, like, oh my gosh, I have so much stuff to get done, or you put the kids to bed at 8 o'clock at night and you're up until 1 a.m. and then you go to sleep at 1 a.m. and you wake up at 5 a.m. and you're working until your kids wake up, you drop them off, you come home and you work. Like you're just working all the time because you love what you're doing. Or sometimes I think you love what you're doing, but you're doing it at a pace or a level that really it just is not sustainable for you in this season. Either because the expectations have gotten so ridiculously high, or because you have had some decrease in capacity and you can't keep up with where you were before. Okay. Often people in burnout have a vision, either be a product or a direction in their career or what they want to do, why they're doing it. They know why they're doing it. It's just the pace or the level of distraction or the amount of stuff that they feel like they have to produce is just not sustainable. There could be some poor planning, i.e. you're just shooting from the hip all the time. So you have all these ideas. You have so many things on the go with your business, for example, or in your life, but you just can't, you're dropping balls everywhere. It's kind of like there was this really funny image from Jen Hatmaker. If you guys don't follow her, she's great. And her assistant sent her this image that was like, I am like, I think she said herself, like a circus Hindu god holding up, 18 plates that are spinning around on poles, like in a circus. And there's like 5 people above her doing the same thing. And that's kind of what burnout looks like. You kind of know what you want to do and you have structure, but you just have so much going on and you can't possibly maintain it all. Scarcity thinking. So scarcity is like fear of missing out, or I need to keep doing stuff because I need to make more sales. I'm not making enough, so I need to push harder. Not wanting to fail. This is often around people who they always want to be first place, or they have to make this dream work. They just have to keep working. If they work harder, then it will definitely work. And producing in a hurry, which is what we kind of talked about earlier. So you have ideas, you have so many ideas, but you've got a Canva presentation done, but then it's kind of sloppy. You have social media, but the words aren't spelled correctly or the punctuation isn't good. You're just producing as much stuff as possible, where if you just slow down a little bit, you actually would produce better. So I kind of wanted to talk about what is it caused by, but then also some other aspects that if you are in a burnout state, might recognize as triggers for stressful thinking or triggers for poor planning, which we've kind of talked about. So fear of missing out can be like an underlying foundational principle of creating stressful thinking or producing in a hurry, right? Perfectionism is really just about you seeking validation from people. So the more I produce, the more sales I get, the higher rank I am, the more I commit to, and I look like I have it all together, then I'm more quote unquote successful. I'm able to create satisfying results. I'm going to create more than that person's going to create. Perhaps you're a bit competitive. You're buying into the hustle, boss babe, goddess rhetoric. Like, oh, you boss babe, you goddess, you are hustling, make that hustle work. And so you do that, but because you haven't scaled your business with like systems, or you haven't called in other people to help you, you just burn out. You love what you're doing, but you just are not scaling, but you're hustling because that's what you think everyone wants you to do. That's a rhetoric that you're adopting, and you're growing so quickly that you can't keep up. And so you just start to burn out because there's just too many balls in the air. You find value and worth in the workhorse mentality. So this is I've had to deal with as I've worked through kind of what I call a workhorse mentality. Put the plow on my back and I'll plow the fields until the cows come home. Like, I can do it. I can do it all. I can do it all and then more. I'm totally capable. Don't you worry. You give me that. Like the saying goes is give the project or task to a busy person because they'll always get it done. Right? So when we're looking at burnout, it's not because you don't want to do it. It's just that you're so tired. You haven't actually stopped. And the second part of that, on that same caveat, is that if you're someone who is a workhorse mentality, oftentimes we've been sold this rhetoric that rest is lazy, right? You can sleep when you're dead. You keep the spring bones tight, People who are workers are the ones that really keep the world turning, like all these kind of rhetoric type things that you may have been sold. You don't want to backslide. You want to make sure that you're staying in the cool crowd, that if you don't maintain the pace that everyone's running at, that you're going to somehow be rejected socially, and that you don't want to feel isolated. So you're just going to keep going, because the fear of stepping back creates this trigger of isolation that you would never want to, you don't want to fall into. You don't want to feel isolated or alone. So you'd rather burn yourself out and stay with the social group where you feel there's a sense of belonging because you have a shared experience of hustle, than you would to step back and say, whoa, I need to actually sit here and rest. Okay. So those are some things to think about. That might be you in burnout. Let me just continue on with burnout here then. So how do we flip burnout? And then I'll go to overwhelm. So the thing is that when you're in burnout, it's often a fact that people who are literally, they'll come to me and they have really successful businesses, or they're totally overcommitted and they're like, I just love what I'm doing, but I'm just so tired. Or if I'm really snappy with my husband, or I don't want to say this, but I just don't enjoy my kids. They just really annoy me. Like, I just feel like they're pecking up, they're just so demanding, or I feel really on edge all the time. Like, I feel like I'm always keyed up. Like, I'm always just like ready, like this kind of high cortisol response all the time. And the first thing I ask people is, when was the last, and that's kind of the thing, like, okay, I know they love what they're doing, but what they're telling me is that they're actually really tired and they feel overstimulated. They feel overworked. They haven't had a holiday for Lord knows how long, and they're repressing and withholding all sense of rest. They're on their phone all the time. Classic example. I just can't put my phone down. I couldn't even imagine not having my phone on me for at least, I don't even know how I could have it off for an hour. Like, I don't, or sometimes people will coach with me and say, I want to go on this holiday with my family, but I don't want to be on my phone all the time. How do I do it? This addiction to phone, go, do, don't fall behind, answer every email, right? All the time, 24/7, 365. There's no such thing as Sabbath. There's no such thing as rest or evenings. It's work. You are wanting to produce results all the time. So the first thing I say is, when you're in a burnout state, the best thing you can do is to rest. Because if you're someone who really is quite overwhelmed and quite overstimulated and really just fried, you need to learn how to calm your central nervous system down and create practices in your life that help you to rejuvenate. Now, I actually want to challenge even what I just said to you. And let's just erase the word rest, because rest, when I say that to people who are high achievers or who are in the throes of burnout, often say to me, well, I can't rest, because if I rest, then I don't feel like I'm active enough in what I'm doing. I feel like it's a dirty word. I feel like I'm lazy. So why don't we just turn that word on its head and say restore? Okay. So what restores you? So when I say restore, that means that when you do this activity, or you hang out with this person, or you go to this space, either mentally or physically or spiritually, you walk away like, oh, I feel so much better. I feel like my brain feels clear. My body feels lighter. My soul feels cleansed. My soul feels lighter. I feel like I can handle more connection. I feel like I'm not frantically running around as much. So when I say restore, if you're listening to this, wherever you are, what does it take to restore you mentally? Like your brain, what do you enjoy that like stimulates your mind that's not work? Okay. So for me personally, I love intellectual conversations. I really like, this is so, I can't believe I'm admitting this to you. I love Nailed It on Netflix. I love MasterChef. I love watching that. I really, really, really love like the murder shows, or like Murder Mountain, or I'm a Killer, or the not Charles Manson. I forgot his name now. There's another Netflix documentary on like the serial killer. Like, I love crime and mystery and And the opposite of that is I like cooking. So whatever it is mentally or intellectually that stimulates you, then do that. Like if it's reading books or listening to podcasts, but podcasts that don't hyper stimulate you in a work sense. Like a podcast is about something like creativity or slow living or murder mystery or something that's really not involved in your workspace at all, where you walk away and you're like, oh, that's really interesting. My husband, mentally, he probably would say that he loves chopping wood or mowing the lawn or using the whippersnipper, which is also known as a weed whacker, or selling birds at auctions. Like everyone has a different way that they mentally restore, right? Some people it's intellectual like me. Some people it's meditation. Some people it's yoga or running or bike riding or horseback riding or cooking. Whatever it is that kind of allows your brain to like slow down, decompress, think a different way. And also another thing for mental restoration is what allows you to amp up your creativity, right? When you're in a burnout state, I often find I'm not actually that creative. I'm able to produce things with the same templates or viewpoint that I had before, but new ideas or creativity or colors or textures or programs or ideas or social media or connection never happens when I'm burnt out, ever, never. So part of that for me, a mental restoration might mean turning my phone off or taking social media apps off my phone for 24, 40, or 72 hours, right? So it's about you saying, in my mind, what allows me to think differently from the thing that's causing me burnout and to up my creativity. That is mental or intellectual restoration to me. Spiritual restoration or faith-based restoration or connected in a spiritual way is how you restore that way. So if you are maybe more new age, then you might have crystals or tarot or whatever you do. I don't do any of that, but if that's what you like to do and that's how you restore spiritually, then that's what you do. For me, it is yin yoga with Christian music on. It is being as diligent as I can with daily verses and reading. It's putting books and thoughts and ideas in my mind that help me have a very spiritual practice with my faith that is also very open and allows me to really look at my faith in a lot of different angles. And it's also being around like-minded people who challenge me spiritually as well. So when I look at spiritual restoration, it's quiet time. It's also physical embodiment through the practice of yin yoga. And it's also an awareness that if my spiritual restoration doesn't happen, it impacts me systemically. And so when I look at if I'm flipping into a place of burnout or aggression, spiritual restoration is one of the things that we often forget about, but is really important. So you have mental, intellectual, spiritual, emotional restoration. So what restores you emotionally? For me, that's close friends. For me, that's unplanned and unhurried gatherings where there isn't expectations for a certain level of production, i.e. just a barbecue at a park with the kids, is so restorative to me emotionally. Emotional restoration as well can be like osteopathy. It could be acupuncture. It could be a massage. It could be a facial. Whatever restores you emotionally. And also for me is sleep. And so those are the areas I want you to really think about too. And I think another area of restoration that you could put in there as well is physical restoration. Okay. So what restores you physically? What practice or thing or place that allows your body to feel restored, right? That's what burnout needs. When we have that restoration practice down, and I would encourage you to write that down, like what restores me emotionally, what restores me intellectually, what restores me physically, what restores me spiritually. Write those down, because what happens then is that it allows you to realign with your purpose. It allows you to be willing to take risk and fail, because you're not in a frantic state of trying to constantly produce. You're not in scarcity anymore. You're in a very aligned, restored space. And I think sometimes we think of restoration as like laying by the pool, getting loaded on cocktails. And although that may restore you for a while, I really want you to think about if you were to go on like a restorative holiday, what would that look like? Does that actually look like a full-on detox, or is that what you think it should be? And what does it actually need for you to be is really important. So when you're burning out, it's really actually about you pulling the reins back a little bit, learning how to delegate and stop micromanaging your business or your life, and maybe call in a meal plan service for 4 weeks, or having a cleaner come in and spend the money. Maybe it's putting your kid in childcare 1 or 2 days a week so you can just breathe a little bit. Maybe it's waving the white flag and just saying, I am so burned out right now and we need to go on a holiday, and the holiday is going to look like this. And it's also coming back into this idea, this restorative practice with yourself of prioritizing restoration, so that ironically you can take what you're doing and expand it even more. Okay. And looking for places in your life that bring joy and fun and in the moment color, right? Texture, sensation, like, oh my gosh, that was such a fun day. My phone was at home. I was so present. The kids had fun. We played. We had ice cream. We had juice. We had lollies. We had this amazing breakfast or whatever, right? That's what you want. That is restoration. When you walk away from whatever it is, or the experience or the place or the person, that you feel alive. That's restorative rest. That's what you need when you're in burnout. Now, overwhelm is similar-ish but different. So overwhelm is, again, not producing results. So this is really about you not knowing what you want. Whereas burnout, you know what you want and you're so afraid that you're going to lose it that you just you're just trying to produce as much as possible. You're like a mouse in a wheel, or a hamster in a hamster wheel. You're going, you know where you want to go, but you just can't stop. Whereas overwhelm is kind of like, I just think of overwhelm as like a ping pong ball in a wind tunnel. You are just bouncing here and there and here and there, and you're going, I don't know what I want. Do I want this? No, I don't want this. I want that. No, I want that. You might actually have a lot going on, but you don't either know why you're doing it, or you don't know how to say no. Okay. And so what ends up happening is you either feel like you're totally spread thin and you're just totally possibly burned out, but in the overwhelmed state, it's like you don't even know where to start. You've either started to stop so many things. You don't know where you want to go. You don't have a vision. You don't have boundaries. You're either a yes person saying yes to all these things, but you don't know why you're saying yes to all these things. You just feel emotionally or physically or spiritually depleted. Or you have so much information, or you bought so many programs, or you're coaching with 5 or 6 different coaches. I was talking to a friend actually in the States, and she's like, so how many coaches do you have? And I go, I only have 1 coach at a time. And she's like, oh, my friend has 7. I'm like, for what? What do you need 7 coaches for? Like, you'd have a coach for everything, like a coach for social media, a coach for your house, a coach for your spiritual life, a coach for your physical self, a coach for your marriage, a coach for your kid. Like, you have a coach for everything. I'm like, that to me is overwhelm. That to me, if you had 7 coaches, I feel like that would be an overwhelming state. It's like you're looking for so much affirmation outside of you that you don't know like what it is that you really need to hone in on. You're not clear at all. So you're like, what does this person say? What does this person say? I think of overwhelm as this idea that you are seeking validation from the peanut gallery too much. So you end up doing a lot of stop, start, or you end up doing all these things in your business because somebody else is doing it, but you don't know why you're doing it. There's oftentimes I talk to very well-intended people, super smart, super successful, and they're totally overwhelmed. And I'm like, why are you doing it? And they're like, I don't know. Well, why are you doing it? Oh, well, somebody said I should. I'm like, well, just because somebody said you should, does that mean that you want to do it? Well, I don't know. So oftentimes when we're overwhelmed, we just kind of feel like we're throwing paint in a wall, hoping that something sticks, hoping that somehow something will happen. And you're working frantically, or you're not doing anything at all and you're totally procrastinating. So you might have all this stuff in front of you, but because you don't really know why you're doing it, or it's not really producing what you want, but you feel like you have to do it, you just don't do anything. So you don't have a clear plan for your business. You don't have a clear plan for getting your house decluttered or getting back into the career that you want. You just feel like you just kind of like, bleh. You don't really know what you want to do. And it's because you don't have a clear vision or direction of what you want to go. You're either doing nothing because you just in your mind, you have so much to do because you don't know what you really want to do. You can't prioritize. Or you always say to people, I'm just so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. How are you? Oh my gosh, I'm just so busy. I have so much to do. I don't even know where to start. That kind of thing, right? And so it's really about overwhelm is about actually a lack of alignment. And although I would say to go back and make sure that you are creating restorative practices, don't hide in your lack of alignment. Like, I'm just restoring, and that's important. Sometimes we're overwhelmed because we don't know what we want, and because we don't know what we want, we don't have a clear vision. We sometimes do need to do the restorative practices because we're so depleted. So if you feel so depleted and overwhelmed, then I would tell you to spend some time in creativity and joy and active restoration, but not too long. Okay. Now, if you're an overwhelmed because you don't have boundaries, that's another story. Okay. So if somebody said to me, okay, I get the whole, I don't have a vision. I totally get what you're saying. That's exactly how I feel. But why did that happen? I'm like, that's a really good question. So what I see with people who are overwhelmed, they don't have a clear plan. They're procrastinating. They're always saying yes to things, but they don't even know why. They're buying thousands and thousands of dollars worth of programs online. They never actually implement. They're wasting money. They're blowing out the back door. They don't have a clear vision online or a clear voice on social media. So some of the things to think about that might have caused this overwhelm. If you're listening right now and you're overwhelmed, I want you to think, so why do you think I'm an overwhelm? The first one I often see is that you're wanting things or people outside of you to validate you. So it's like, oh, if I do this program or I follow this person on social media, even though they trigger me, or I like say yes to this and then yes to this and yes to this and yes to this, they'll all tell me that I'm worthy. Mm-hmm. And so we get overwhelmed because we're not finding the worth internally. We're not actually saying, I'm worthy of having boundaries. I am worthy of saying this thing on social media or in my business this way. So I'm going to listen to 15 other people of how to run a business or show up on social media or even parent my kid or or show up in my marriage because I don't know what I want, but I want them to tell me that I'm worthy. And so we get overwhelmed by this kind of peanut gallery conversation of people that don't actually matter to you, truly. But you're seeking approval from them, and then you get overwhelmed, and then you shut down. Or you end up spending lots of money on things that you didn't, if you were to take a step back, you probably wouldn't spend money on. You're not spending time with you. So you're not actually listening and learning and being comfortable with you. Now that could be because you've never been aware of it before. That also could be that you're running from trauma or past hurt or shame or guilt or this idea that you don't know how to be vulnerable and show up. So I would encourage you, that might be a really great place to coach with someone like myself on, or maybe it's time to really unpack some triggers that you've been suppressing through kind of keeping yourself really busy in your business, but you're not actually producing anything. Maybe it's time to go see a psychologist and just work through some areas so you can kind of refresh, release the baggage, and move forward. You say yes to things because you want to feel important or loved. The more things you say yes to, the more people will think, wow, she's so capable, even though you don't know why you're doing it. Sometimes one of the things to really think about when you're flipping overwhelm is releasing the victim. And sometimes we don't want to accept the reality of our choices. Instead of saying, you know what, you're right. I have bought 10 programs online. I've spent $5,000 and I've implemented one of them, which was a complete flop. Maybe what I'm doing just isn't what I should be doing. And I need to take a step back and put some boundaries on my life and spend a little bit more time with myself and a lot less time trying to create something that just isn't going to work. That's where you start to create So really clear boundaries around what it is that you want, and also accepting what the reality may be. Do you know your numbers? Do you know how much money you have coming in and out of your business, for example, or even in your own personal life? Are you budgeting? Do you have a track on the money that you're spending? So often I see people who are overwhelmed, and then I say, well, what are your finances? And they have absolutely no idea. So is what you're doing even financially viable for you? We ignore that and we distract ourselves with a whole bunch of other things because we don't want to deal with the reality that perhaps what you're doing isn't just working anymore. And you're also sometimes create busy, like I'm so busy, or I have so many things on the go. And I'm just like, whoa, I have so much stuff and I'm so overwhelmed, as a way to protect ourselves from vulnerability, right? Like if we're so busy and we're so, quote, unavailable for people, and we don't create any space for connection because we're trying to like figure out what the hell we're supposed to be doing, we actually don't have to show up with any sort of courage or vulnerability or authenticity. We just show up how we think somebody in a program told us how to show up, or how we think we want to make sure that we're glossed over, but we don't even know why we're doing it. So when you're in overwhelm, some of the things to think about is like, what is the point of this exercise? Is a great question to ask. What is the point of me buying X and Y program? What do I want to get out of coaching? When you're coaching with someone, it's not about them telling you exactly how to run your business. You need to be able to show up equally in that coaching relationship. And so often when I coach the people who show up in a coaching session with me and I can tell that they want me to tell them how to run their lives, I say to them, unless you're going to show up, unless you're really going to go there, unless you're really going to start being vulnerable and courageous with what we're doing, I can't coach you because I'm not here to yell at you. I'm not here to parent you. I'm here to encourage you and to push you and to expand your mindset and to make you think about things differently, but you have to show up with what you want. You don't know what your goals are specifically. So if I said, so what's your vision statement? What's the purpose of your business? What is it that you want to be known for? You don't know how to answer those questions. You're not clear with boundaries. So you're not saying no to things. You're saying yes to too many things. Or you are letting people or certain ideologies that really, truly don't align with you to be really loud in your mind. So this is about you kind of stepping back and out and having a really good look at what you're doing and saying, is what I'm doing what I really want to do? And then if the answer is no, you act on that. That's the difference, right? That's the change. If you say to me, no, it's not what I want to do, but I'm too afraid of X, Y, and Z, then you're still going to stay overwhelmed. But if you start to learn by adding a psychologist, or you start to do some practices of restoration for alignment sakes, or you start to work with a coach and say, hey, I know that I'm overwhelmed and I know that I need to set boundaries, but I don't know how to do it because I'm so fearful of blank, 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 then you can start to change. Then you can start focusing in on what it is that you really need to do. And also, I think the thing about overwhelm is that you need to accept the fact that perhaps for a little while, you've been listening to the wrong people or the wrong things, and then it's time for you to kind of buckle down and get really clear on what it is that you want. Perhaps you don't want to run so fast anymore. Perhaps you don't want to be on 15 committees anymore. And you are going to upset people and you are going to disappoint people, but it's time to say no. It's totally time to say no. And maybe it's that you just need to clarify what it is in your business. What you did 2 years ago isn't what you want to do now. You're scared to shift, but once you shift, you'll just fly, right? And then all of that prioritization, all of that procrastination will go. So when you're in overwhelmed state, it's really about getting clear, define boundaries, define vision so that you can move forward and releasing all of the schluff that is holding you back. So lots to talk about, lots to really think about and postulate on. I hope that is something that you really enjoyed. I love coaching with people on this. I have in-depth coaching for 4 months called the In-Depth Life Strategy Session. And I also have a brand new coaching program called No Frills 60 Reboot, which you can do one or multiple 60-minute calls with me. Maybe you just need a 60-minute call for me to kind of help shake it out with you. Or maybe you need a couple calls and then we just then you're able to fly after that. So if you're all interested in taking this conversation further, please email me at mish@mishpope.com or head to my website, mishpope.com, on the life coaching tab, and come and coach with me. So thank you guys so much for this episode. I hope that helps you because it's such an important topic, and I hope that you have some insight now so you can get clear on what it is that you need to do to be a little bit more fulfilled and a bit more balanced. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I just wanted to let you know something really cool, in that I have spent a lot of time redoing all of my coaching packages. So you can check them all out on my website, mishpope.com. I have a brand new package called No Frills Reboot 60, which allows you to create your coaching contract without all the fluff, the bonuses, and all the extra stuff that you may not want, but all the coaching for you. I also have an in-depth life strategy coaching package, which is for you who wants all the juicy support, all the extra support, the bonuses. I'm added in yin yoga videos for you. It's really a 4-month deep dive with a ton of extra support from me. You have me at your fingertips all the time. And lastly, for those of you who'd like to really learn about your strengths and your zone of genius, I have a 90-minute strengths and talents call. So go to my website, mishpope.com, and click on the life coaching tab for all the updated life coaching packages. I would love to connect with you.